string, right? You see it, right? Yeah, there's no string, it's imaginary. How are you looking at it? What is she? It's a little weird, right? It's a little weird, right? I like weird. So with this motion, this whipping motion, the process was this. It happened here. In that motion, the whip came down. You can actually hear the actual wind. Check this out. You hear that? I did that a couple days ago. I broke the microphone. You know how many broken microphones I've had to buy in my life from showing that technique? Hundreds. You are a little weird, huh? With that motion now, this whipping motion here, now you combine Gladstone, George Lawrence Stone, and Sanford Moeller. Now those three movements, remember these guys were kind of like movement scientists. So when they discovered this stuff, it was incredible knowledge that came out. Now it's the late 1960s, I'm about 12 years old, 13 years old, and I'm ready to take some drum lessons. I was inspired by seeing Ringo Starr play on the Ed Sullivan Show back in 1964. This band came out, I'm watching this, and the band played. My one brother said, I gotta play guitar. My other brother said, I gotta play bass. I said, I'm taking up drums. We put our own band together, and we worked for many, many years with just three brothers, being inspired by seeing the Beatles play. I go out there, now I want to take some lessons. So I hear all these three great drummers, Billy Gladstone, George Lawrence Stone, and Sanford Moeller. So I start tracking down where these guys are teaching, and I find that at that time, they had all passed away. I'm going, oh man. So my first question was, who were their best students? That to me was the journey. Okay? Gladstone, Stone, and Moeller, they're not here. Who were their best students? So I find out under Billy Gladstone, two great students were Ted Reed and Arnie Lang. Arnie Lang is still with us today, 79 years young, teaching at Brooklyn College. He played at Lincoln Center for many years. I went and took lessons with Arnie Lang and Ted Reed. Ted Reed passed away many years ago, and Ted Reed wrote the book Syncopation, the third most famous book in the world. Stick Control is number one. The book that Jim Chapin wrote was number two. And Syncopation by Ted Reed, number three. So now, under George Lawrence Stone was Joe Morello, who was his best student, and the famous Vic Firth. You see these sticks that we have? Vic Firth, you see the name on the stick? Vic Firth, you see the name on the practice pad? Vic Firth is an incredible drummer. Started out as a drum set player, then got involved with the symphony with timpani and snare drum, played with the Boston Symphony for 50 years. Recently retired, and of course, as you know, manufactures probably the greatest drumstick in the world, easily. He felt he wanted to really give something back, so he manufactured a tool like drumsticks, simply the best in the world. So I sat down with Joe Morello and Vic Firth to learn the George Lawrence Stone ideas. Then under Sanford Moeller, his best student was Jim Chapin, who is now 90. So I went and took lessons with Jim Chapin. So I got a chance to study with these guys to learn how this movement worked. How the movement of this finger technique, just from the finger. Then wrist. Only wrist. Then Moeller and the whip. All those movements were so powerful. The object is, they're all just a different tool. It's just a different tool. When to use your fingers, when to use your wrist, and when to use your arms. You can't do everything with only one of them. You really need all three. For the same reason that I like to work around my house. And I have a toolbox. And in my toolbox I have three different types of hammers. I've got a little tack hammer, which is like about this big here. It's got a little head on it. And a little tack hammer. And if I go to fix a picture frame, the little picture frame, I get my little tack hammer out, I get my little tack nail, and I fix the picture frame with this movement. I do this. A little hammer. Then I have what's called a framing hammer. About this big, with a big head on it. And if I want to put a big nail in the side of my house to hold a window or something, I get the nail out, I get the hammer. Now this framing hammer is this movement. And I hammer the nail this way. Then I have a cement patio in the back of my yard, and I want to break it up to put a new patio in. So I get out my sledgehammer. Now my sledgehammer is a big hammer with a big metal head on it, and this is the movement for the sledgehammer. That's the movement you do for the sledgehammer, to break the cement. So I ask you, would you ever use your sledgehammer to fix the picture frame? Yeah. You would? Who said yes? How old are you? 9? You won't see 10. You won't see 10. You'll stop at 9, that's it. Yeah, stay away from the sledgehammer. You won't make it, all right? So what happens now is this sledgehammer, it's just too big a tool to do too small a job. Would you ever go out there and break the cement and get your tack hammer? I mean, you could do it, but you'd use way more energy to get too little a result. So the object here is to be really smart, to use the right tool for the right job. So that's what these early movement scientists in the drumming art form discovered. The finger movement, the wrist movement, and the arm movement. And they put this all together to realize that there was something that was there that each of them would offer that would help future generations. Well, here it is, many years after they've since passed on, and their concepts and ideas still live on. As I watched all the players on stage, they all have elements of Billy Gladstone, George Lawrence Stone, and Sanford Moeller. They may not realize that, but they do. When I teach, I have some of the best drummers around the world that come in to take lessons with me. Are you familiar with the band Nickelback? Yes. The drummer Daniel Adair, he's come in for some lessons with me. He comes to my studio in New York. He's a phenomenal player and still comes in for lessons. He still comes in to learn about these techniques. Even though he's playing in front of 40 and 50,000 people a night, he comes in to analyze it. If you've ever seen the last month, the February issue of Modern Drummer, Daniel was on the cover. Read the article. He mentions being in the article about some of the lessons we had and some of the positions and techniques I showed him. So what amazes me is these great players still go back to learn. They still go to steal. How powerful that is. That from these great older players to even now, the knowledge is still like a thread weaving its way through to even the next generation of drummers who may not even know of some of the names like Buddy Rich, who might not know of some of the names like Louis Bellson, the great Louis Bellson who just passed away 2 weeks ago. The great Louis Bellson, the inventor of this, 2 bass drums. Imagine back in the 1930s when drum set first evolved, they had a little drum set like this. Bass drum, no floor tom, a little snare, that's all they had. Louis Bellson, as a young kid, says, you know, I'm playing with a big band. I think I'm going to try 2 bass drums. When he put 2 bass drums on the bandstand, they looked at him like, what are you? What are you, stupid? We couldn't be stupid because Mitch was the king of stupid. Mitch already owned that. So what's amazing about it is that with this here, he said, well, I got an idea. I think this might work. They said, well, we don't think so, but let's try it. So when he put this together, he had to then come up with an idea. How do I attach my hi-hat to the second bass drum? So he had to go and ask his father to weld him a device that could attach the hi-hat to the bass drum. He went back and said, Dad, can you make me a device so my hi-hat can stay? His dad said, yeah. So they invented the tools they needed to make it happen. Well, Louis went out and played with 2 bass drums. And as they say, the rest is history. When everyone said, it will never last. He's passed on 2 weeks ago, and here I am on stage in Winnipeg, and we have the memories of Louis Bellson still with us.